April 7th, 2024, 9:18 p.m., San Francisco. The night Sophia Hale found the restaurant receipt in her husband's coat pocket, she did not scream, did not cry, and did not wake her sleeping daughter upstairs. She simply folded the paper along its original crease, placed it back where she had found it, and understood with a frightening calm that the woman she had been pretending to be was gone. The rain outside had started as a soft tapping against the penthouse windows, gentle enough to sound peaceful, but inside the Hale residence, silence had become a kind of punishment. Sophia stood in the walk-in closet with Ethan's charcoal suit jacket in her hands, the one he had worn 2 nights earlier, when he told her he would be working late at the office. The receipt was from Maison Aurelia, one of the most private restaurants in the city, the kind of place where executives went when they wanted dim lighting, expensive wine, and no interruptions. Dinner for two, champagne, dessert, a timestamp of 10:47 p.m. Sophia stared at the numbers until they blurred, not because she didn't understand them, but because she understood them too clearly. For months she had felt it, the distance, the late replies, the faint trace of unfamiliar perfume on his collar. The way Ethan angled his phone away when she entered a room. The name that appeared too often in conversations. He claimed were strictly professional. Clara Hayes, a consultant, a strategist, a rising talent, someone who understood the business. Sophia placed the jacket back on the hanger carefully. That was what shocked her most about herself. The care, the control. There was no dramatic collapse, no trembling hands, no desperate call to a friend. She simply turned off the closet light and walked into the bedroom where the bed was still perfectly made on her side and carelessly disturbed on his. Down the hall, her 6-year-old daughter, Lily, slept with one hand under her cheek and a stuffed rabbit pressed against her chest. Sophia stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching her breathe. Lily had Ethan's dark lashes and Sophia's soft mouth, and for years Sophia had told herself that whatever happened between husband and wife, she had to keep the home gentle for the child. But standing there that night, with the proof of betrayal still burning in her memory, she realized gentleness did not mean silence. Protecting a child did not mean teaching her that a woman should disappear quietly when someone stopped valuing her. Sophia entered Lily's room and pulled the blanket higher around her small shoulders. "Mommy?" Lily whispered without fully waking. "I'm here, sweetheart," Sophia said softly. "Is Daddy home?" The question landed deeper than it should have. Ethan was home, yes. Downstairs in his study, probably texting the woman from Maison Aurelia while pretending to review financial reports. "Yes," Sophia said. "He's home." Lily relaxed, already drifting back into sleep. "Can we go to the park tomorrow?" Sophia brushed a curl from her forehead. "Yes, we'll go." "You promise?" Sophia looked at her daughter's tiny fingers wrapped around the rabbit's ear. "I promise." And in that moment she made another promise too, silent and harder. She would never again let Ethan's absence become the shape of their life. 3 years earlier, Sophia had believed she was marrying a man with ambition, not a man who would one day confuse ambition with entitlement. They had met on a rainy afternoon in a small bookstore in North Beach, before Ethan Hale became the kind of name people repeated in conference rooms. He had been standing in the biography section with a copy of a book upside down in his hands, looking too proud to admit he was lost. Sophia had noticed, smiled, and said, "Either you're reading in a very original way, or you need help." Ethan had looked down, realized the book was upside down, and laughed with an honesty that had disarmed her. "I was hoping no one saw that." "I saw everything," she said. "Then I'm already in trouble." That was how it began. Coffee after books, dinner after coffee, long walks through streets slick with rain, where he talked about building a company that would change urban design, and she talked about art, architecture, childhood, and the quiet beauty of ordinary days. He had listened then, really listened. He remembered the name of her favorite painter, the way she liked black tea with honey, the fact that she hated roses because they felt too obvious, but loved white lilies because they seemed honest. When he proposed 18 months later, he did it simply. On a foggy morning near the Golden Gate overlook, no cameras, no crowd, no performance. Just Ethan, nervous and sincere, holding a ring and shaking hands. I don't have everything yet, he had said, but I want to build everything with you. Sophia had believed him. For a while they did build, or at least she thought they did. She hosted investors in their apartment when Ethan's company was small enough that every signature mattered. She edited his speeches when he came home exhausted and insecure. She reassured him through failed pitches, stood beside him through the humiliating early years, and once sold a diamond bracelet her grandmother had left her, so he could cover payroll during a crisis he never mentioned again after success arrived. Then success did arrive, slowly at first, then all at once. Hale Urban Ventures became the company journalists loved to write about. Ethan was handsome, articulate, young enough to be called visionary, polished enough to be trusted by old money. He began traveling more, dressing better, speaking less when he came home. The apartment became a penthouse. The old laughter became scheduled dinners. The man who once asked Sophia what she thought began saying, "You wouldn't understand." At first she fought it gently. "Tell me anyway," she would say. He would kiss her forehead, already looking at his phone. "It's complicated." Then Lily was born, and Sophia shifted her energy toward motherhood. She told herself Ethan was under pressure, that building a company required sacrifice, that love sometimes looked like patience. She created warmth in the spaces he left empty. She filled the penthouse with light, books, flowers, tiny shoes by the door, drawings on the fridge, soup on rainy evenings, music in the mornings. To outsiders, it looked like an enviable life, a beautiful wife, a successful husband, a sweet daughter, a home high above the city. But wealth can make loneliness look elegant. By the time Clara Hayes entered Ethan's professional circle, Sophia had already become practiced at pretending. Clara was 29, sharp, stylish, with the kind of confidence that came from never being asked to prove tenderness. Ethan mentioned her during dinner one night while Lily was coloring at the table. "Clara thinks we should reposition the Singapore proposal," he said. Sophia looked up. "Clara? Clara Hayes, strategic consultant. You haven't mentioned her before." "I just did." The answer was small, but something in it was closed. After that, the name appeared everywhere. Clara had an idea. Clara caught an error. Clara understood the investor psychology. Clara stayed late. Clara traveled well. Clara wasn't sentimental about business decisions. One evening, Sophia said quietly, "You seem impressed by her." Ethan didn't look away from his laptop. "I'm impressed by competence." The words were not directly cruel, but cruelty does not always need to shout. Sometimes it sits calmly inside a sentence and waits for you to understand. Now, standing outside Lily's bedroom on April 7th, Sophia understood everything. The next morning, she woke before dawn. Ethan had fallen asleep in the guest room, something he had begun doing under the excuse of early calls. Sophia made breakfast for Lily, packed her lunch, braided her hair, and listened as Lily described a drawing she wanted to make for school. "It's a house," Lily said, swinging her feet under the kitchen stool. "But not a big house, a happy one." Sophia paused with the lunchbox in her hand. "What makes a house happy?" Lily thought seriously. "People eating together, and Daddy not on his phone." Sophia closed the lunchbox slowly. Children notice everything. When Ethan entered the kitchen, dressed in the navy suit, smelling faintly of expensive soap and another life, Lily brightened. "Daddy, can you come to the park with us today? Mommy promised." Ethan barely glanced up. "Can't today, bug. Work." Lily's face fell. But it's Sunday. Companies don't stop on Sundays. Sophia looked at him. Some things should. He gave her a quick, irritated glance. Not now. Lily slid off the stool quietly. It's okay. But it wasn't okay. Sophia watched her daughter accept disappointment with the practiced grace of a child learning too early not to expect too much. After the school drop-off the next morning, Sophia drove across town to a quiet office near the Embarcadero. The glass door read, Mercer and Rowe Consulting. Ethan's oldest business partner, Julian Mercer, had known Sophia before the penthouse, before Hale Urban became a headline, before Ethan started speaking about his own life as though he had built it alone. Julian met her in the lobby, concern already written across his face. Sophia, he said, you sounded serious on the phone. I found a receipt. His expression changed so quickly she didn't need to say more. They sat in his office overlooking the bay. For several seconds, neither spoke. Sophia removed the folded receipt from her purse and placed it on his desk. I need you to tell me the truth, she said. Julian closed his eyes briefly, like a man who had been waiting for a storm and still hated seeing it arrive. How long? She asked. He looked at the receipt, then at her. 5 months, maybe 6. Sophia inhaled slowly. The number had shape now. Wait. With Clara? Yes. Does everyone know? No, Julian said quickly. Not everyone, but enough people suspect. Sophia's face remained still. Julian leaned forward. I tried to talk to him, more than once. He said I was being old-fashioned. He said his marriage was already over emotionally. Sophia gave a small, humorless smile. That's convenient. I wish someone had informed his wife. Sophia, what else? Julian looked away. There is a gala on Thursday, the Pacific Enterprise Council event at the Fairmont. I know the event. He's bringing her. The room became very quiet. Sophia stared at him. As what? Julian swallowed. As his strategic partner, publicly. He's planning to introduce her to several investors tied to the Singapore expansion. And me? He told people you prefer private life, that you're focused on Lily. Sophia nodded once, slowly. There it was. Not just betrayal, replacement, erasure. He was going to let me sit at home, she said softly, while he presented her beside him. Julian's jaw tightened. Yes. Sophia stood and walked to the window. Below, people moved along the pier, carrying coffee, walking dogs, living ordinary lives. She wondered how many women had stood in beautiful rooms with broken hearts while the world continued completely unaware. There's more, Julian said. She turned. I don't like Clara, he said. Not because of the affair, because of the contracts. She pushed through consulting fees tied to offshore accounts. Ethan signed approvals he shouldn't have signed. If those numbers are questioned, the board will have no choice but to investigate. Sophia's eyes sharpened. Illegal? Potentially. At minimum, unethical. At worst, criminal. And Ethan knows? He knows enough to be afraid. For the first time that morning, Sophia felt something other than pain. Not revenge, not yet. Something cleaner. Direction. Julian studied her. What do you want to do? Sophia turned back to the window. I want to attend the gala. As his wife? She looked at him. No, she said, as myself. Julian understood. You'll need an invitation. You have one. Yes. Then I'll go with you. His brows lifted slightly. People will talk. Sophia's smile was faint and cold. Good. That afternoon, after picking Lily up from school and taking her to the park as promised, Sophia sat on a bench watching her daughter chase bubbles blown by a street performer. Lily laughed so freely that it hurt. Sophia wondered when she herself had stopped laughing like that. Not smiling. She had smiled often. At charity luncheons, at investor dinners, beside Ethan in photographs, in front of people who praised her elegance without knowing anything about her exhaustion. But laughter, real unguarded laughter, she could not remember. Mommy! Lily ran back, breathless. Did you see the big one? I saw, Sophia said, opening her arms as Lily climbed onto her lap. Can Daddy come next time? Sophia held her tighter. I don't know, sweetheart. Is Daddy mad at us? The question sliced through her. No, Sophia said firmly. No, Lily. Adults sometimes forget what matters. That is not your fault. Lily rested her head against Sophia's shoulder. I don't want him to forget me. Sophia closed her eyes. He won't, she whispered, though she no longer knew if that was a promise or a prayer. That night, Ethan came home earlier than usual. Sophia was in the living room reading, though she had not turned a page in 20 minutes. He seemed uneasy, perhaps because Julian had finally confronted him again, perhaps because some instinct warned him that his wife's silence had changed texture. Can we talk? He asked. Sophia looked up. Of course. He sat across from her instead of beside her. That told her enough. I think you should come to the gala Thursday, he said. Sophia tilted her head. Really? Yes. It might look strange if you don't. It might look strange if I do. His eyes narrowed slightly. What does that mean? It means I heard you already have someone accompanying you. His face tightened. Sophia, you don't need to explain tonight. I think I do. No, she said, closing the book gently. Some explanations are only useful before betrayal. Afterward, they become decoration. He stared at her. She stood. I'll see you Thursday, Ethan. His voice sharpened. What are you planning? Sophia looked at him for a long moment. The truth. Then she walked upstairs, leaving him alone in the living room with the first real fear he had felt in months. On Tuesday morning, Sophia called Valentina Cruz, an old college friend who had become one of the most sought-after stylists in California. Valentina had always been dramatic, brilliant, and brutally honest, which was exactly what Sophia needed. Sophia Hale, Valentina said when she answered. Either someone died or you finally decided to stop dressing like a tasteful ghost. Sophia almost laughed. I need a dress. For what? A gala. What kind of gala? The kind where my husband will bring his mistress. There was a pause. Then Valentina said, with complete seriousness, I'll be there in 40 minutes. She arrived with 3 assistants, 2 garment racks, and the energy of a general entering battle. She took one look at Sophia standing in the bedroom and softened. Oh, Soph, I don't want pity, Sophia said. Good, I wasn't offering pity. I was about to offer war. For the next 4 hours, the bedroom became a private transformation room. Valentina rejected dress after dress with sharp efficiency. Black was too predictable, red too obvious, gold too desperate, silver too cold. Then she pulled out a deep sapphire gown that seemed almost liquid in the light, elegant without begging for attention, powerful without being loud. Sophia touched the fabric. This one. Valentina smiled slowly. I knew it. When Sophia tried it on, even the assistants went silent. The gown shaped her like confidence itself. Her shoulders looked graceful, her posture taller, her eyes brighter. She did not look like a woman trying to win her husband back. She looked like a woman returning to herself. Valentina stood behind her in the mirror. There she is. Sophia swallowed. I forgot her, she whispered. No, Valentina said. You buried her to survive. Different thing. On Wednesday, Julian called with more information. Clara's consulting fees had been routed through a private account tied to a shell company in Nevada. Ethan's signature appeared on 2 approvals. Whether he understood the full structure or simply signed what Clara placed in front of him, the effect was the same. Exposure could damage him, the company, and his carefully polished public image. I don't want to destroy him, Sophia said. Julian was quiet. I know that sounds weak, she added. It doesn't. It sounds like you. I want him to face what he did. I want him to stop lying. I want Lily protected. I want dignity. And if he refuses? Sophia looked across the kitchen at Lily's drawing on the refrigerator. A happy house? 3 stick figures. The father figure was drawn slightly apart from the mother and child. Then he chose the other option. Thursday arrived under a clear sky, almost cruelly beautiful. Ethan left the penthouse at 5, claiming he had to arrive early. He did not ask what Sophia would do. Perhaps he hoped she would stay home. Perhaps he feared she would not. At 7:55 p.m., a black car carried Sophia and Julian toward the Fairmont Hotel. The city glittered around them. Sophia sat with her hands folded in her lap, calm enough that Julian glanced at her twice. "You're sure?" he asked. "No," she said honestly. "But I'm ready." The Fairmont's ballroom was already alive when Ethan arrived with Clara on his arm. She wore a champagne-colored gown, her blonde hair swept into a perfect knot, her smile bright enough for cameras and cold enough for anyone paying attention. Ethan looked controlled, handsome, slightly tense. "You're gripping my arm," Clara murmured as they moved through the entrance. "Just stay professional," he said. She laughed softly. "Darling, that's what I do best." He ignored the endearment, but several people nearby did not. In rooms like this, whispers moved faster than music. They were greeted by board members, investors, council officials. Ethan introduced Clara with rehearsed precision. "Clara Hayes, our strategic consultant for international growth." Clara smiled. "It's a pleasure." "And Sophia?" one older investor asked. "Will your wife join us tonight?" Ethan's throat tightened. "Sophia prefers quieter evenings." "Does she?" the man said politely, but his eyes were curious. At 8:42 p.m., the ballroom changed. It began near the entrance, a pause in conversation, then another. Heads turned. The orchestra seemed to soften, not because the musicians were told to, but because the room itself shifted. Sophia entered at the top of the staircase. For one suspended moment, she stood still beneath the chandelier light, sapphire gown falling around her like water, hair swept back loosely, face calm, eyes clear. She did not search for Ethan. She did not rush. She simply descended the stairs with Julian at her side, every step measured, graceful, impossible to ignore. Someone whispered, "Who is that?" Another voice answered, "That's Sophia Hale." Ethan turned before he knew why. When he saw her, all the blood seemed to leave his face. This was not the woman he had left in the penthouse, not the quiet wife who arranged flowers and softened rooms, not the woman he thought would absorb humiliation in silence. This woman looked like consequence. Clara saw his expression and followed his gaze. For the first time since Sophia had known of her existence, Clara looked uncertain. Sophia reached them without hesitation. "Ethan," she said softly. His mouth opened, closed. "Good evening, Sophia." Her eyes moved to Clara. "And you must be Clara Hayes." Clara recovered quickly, extending a hand. "Sophia, I've heard so much about you." Sophia looked at her hand, then accepted it lightly. "How unfortunate. I've heard very little truth about you." The circle around them tightened without appearing to. Executives pretended not to listen. Journalists drifted closer. Ethan felt sweat gather beneath his collar. "Sophia," he said quietly, warning in his voice. She turned to him. "Yes?" "This isn't the place." She smiled faintly. "No? I thought this was exactly the place you chose." Clara's smile sharpened. "I'm not sure what you mean." "I think you are." Julian stepped closer, calm and protective. "Good evening, Ethan." Ethan's eyes flashed. "Julian." Clara glanced between them. "I didn't realize you two were arriving together." Sophia answered before Julian could. "True friends are useful in difficult rooms." The word true landed with quiet force. A council chairman named Martin Ellery approached, smiling with practiced charm. Sophia, what a pleasure. It's been far too long. Ethan, I had no idea your wife would be attending. Neither did Ethan, Sophia said. Martin laughed, unsure if he should. Clara touched Ethan's arm. We should speak with the Singapore group. Sophia looked at Clara's fingers on Ethan's sleeve. Yes, I imagine timing is important when one is establishing a new position. Clara's face tightened. The orchestra began a slow waltz. Julian extended his hand. Sophia? She took it. As they moved onto the dance floor, Ethan stood frozen. He watched Julian's hand settle respectfully at Sophia's back. Watched Sophia move with the ease of someone who remembered she had a body, a presence, a right to occupy space. Around them, people watched too. Not openly, but enough. Clara leaned closer. You didn't tell me she looked like that. Ethan barely heard her. The dance ended, but the damage had already begun. Sophia had not exposed anyone yet. She had simply appeared, and that had been enough to crack the image Ethan had built. After the dance, Sophia returned to the edge of the ballroom. Ethan approached her alone. We need to talk, he said. Yes, she replied. We do. They walked to a side terrace overlooking the city lights. The air was cool, carrying the faint smell of rain, though the sky was clear. For several seconds, Ethan said nothing. Without the ballroom around him, he looked less powerful. What are you doing? He asked finally. Sophia turned to face him. I'm attending a gala. Don't play games. I learned from you. His jaw tightened. Clara is here professionally. Maison Aurelia looked professional. He went pale. There it was. The moment truth entered the room and found him unprepared. How did you? The receipt was in your suit pocket. He looked away. Sophia studied him. You became careless. I never meant for you to find out that way. What a strange thing to regret. He winced. Sophia, it's complicated. No, Ethan, it was complicated when I still loved the version of you I thought existed. Now it's very simple. He stepped closer. I didn't plan for this to happen. But you planned enough. You brought her here. You introduced her beside you. You told people I preferred to stay home. His silence confirmed it. You were erasing me, Sophia said. Quietly, politely, publicly. I felt alone in the marriage too, he said, grasping for defense. Sophia's eyes sharpened. You felt alone beside a woman who supported your work, raised your daughter, protected your reputation, hosted your investors, and sold her grandmother's bracelet when your company almost missed payroll. He looked stunned. You knew about that? She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. Ethan, I did it. His face changed. You thought the emergency wire came from an investor. He said nothing. I never told you because I didn't want gratitude to become debt between us, but now I realize you mistook my silence for emptiness. Sophia! No, listen now, you have talked enough. He looked at her, and for once, he did. I know about Clara. I know about 5 months of lies. I know about the offshore consulting fees. I know about the Nevada account. I know your signature is on documents you should never have signed. Ethan's face drained. That's company business. That is our daughter's future if you let scandal destroy everything. She told me it was standard international structuring. Sophia's expression softened for a moment, not with forgiveness, but with pity. You wanted her to be brilliant so badly that you forgot to ask if she was honest. A sound came from the terrace entrance. Clara stood there. She had clearly heard enough. Ethan, she said carefully, people are asking for you. Sophia turned. Perfect timing. Clara's chin lifted. This is between you and your husband. No, Sophia said. You made yourself part of it when you accepted dinners, public appearances, and private commissions attached to his company. Clara's face went still. I don't know what you think you know. I know enough, Sophia said. Clara looked at Ethan. Are you going to let her speak to me like this? Ethan looked between them, trapped between the woman who flattered him and the woman who knew him. Sophia watched him realize the difference. Clara, he said slowly, is the Nevada account yours? Her eyes flashed. This is not the time. That means yes, Sophia said. Clara turned on her. You think walking in with a dress and a wounded wife performance makes you powerful? Sophia did not flinch. No, I think knowing when to stop begging for respect makes me powerful. Clara's mask slipped. He was unhappy with you long before me. Sophia nodded. Maybe, but unhappy people can still be honest. He chose cowardice. You chose opportunity. Neither of you chose character. For the first time, Clara had no immediate answer. Ethan's voice was low. You should leave, Clara. Her head snapped toward him. Excuse me? You heard me. She stared as if she didn't recognize him. After everything I did for you? Sophia looked at Ethan. There it is. Clara's face twisted. You'll regret this. Possibly, Sophia said, but I won't regret it in hiding. Clara left the terrace with quick, furious steps. Through the glass doors, Sophia saw her moving through the ballroom, smile gone, phone already in hand. Damage control began quickly for people who lived by appearances. Ethan remained on the terrace, smaller now. What happens next? He asked. Sophia looked at the city. You tell the board everything before someone else does. You cooperate with Julian. You remove Clara from all contracts. You protect the company's employees, and you sign a separation agreement that protects Lily from public ugliness. He swallowed. And us? She turned back to him. That was the question he should have asked months ago. Not now, not when he had been caught, not when the glamorous lie had turned dangerous. Us ended slowly, she said. Tonight just made it visible. His eyes filled, though whether from regret or fear she could not know. I loved you, he said. I know. I think I still do. Sophia's voice softened, and that softness hurt him more than anger would have. Some words lose their value when they arrive after betrayal. He closed his eyes. Inside the ballroom, the music changed. Laughter rose, glasses clinked. Life continued, as it always does around private endings. Sophia walked back into the room alone. People watched, but she no longer cared. Julian met her near the doorway. Are you all right? She considered the question. Then, for the first time all week, she answered honestly. Not yet, but I will be. By Monday morning, Ethan had begun the process of telling the truth, not because he had suddenly become noble, but because Sophia had removed the comfort of lies. Julian submitted the internal findings. Clara's contracts were suspended. The board launched a formal review. Ethan stepped down temporarily while the company investigated the approvals carrying his signature. The news did not explode publicly the way gossip might have. Sophia had no interest in scandal for its own sake. She wanted protection, accountability, and distance. Still, business circles whispered. Clara disappeared from several events. Her name stopped appearing on panels. Ethan's perfect image cracked, and he learned what Sophia had already known. The world is kinder to powerful men when they fall, but not always kind enough to save them from themselves. At home, the hardest conversation was with Lily. Are you and Daddy mad? Lily asked one evening while coloring at the kitchen table. Sophia sat beside her. We are having grown-up problems. Is he leaving? Sophia's throat tightened. He may live somewhere else for a while. Lily's crayon stopped moving. Because of me? No. Sophia turned Lily's chair gently so they faced each other. Never because of you. Listen to me carefully, sweetheart. You are loved. By me. By your dad. Always. Adults sometimes make mistakes, but children are not responsible for fixing them. Lily's eyes filled. Will our house still be happy? Sophia looked at the drawing in front of her. This time Lily had drawn two houses with a path between them. I think, Sophia said carefully, a happy house is not about everyone being in the same place. It's about everyone feeling safe where they are. Lily thought about that, then leaned into her mother's arms. In the weeks that followed, Sophia rebuilt her life without announcing it. She moved with Lily into a smaller home in Pacific Heights, not as grand as the penthouse, but warmer. There were flowers on the kitchen table, shoes by the door, books stacked imperfectly, Lily's drawings taped wherever she wanted them. Sophia took consulting work again, the kind she had quietly left behind after marriage, and discovered that her mind had not dulled from motherhood or silence. It had been waiting. Ethan visited Lily twice a week. At first, he arrived stiff with shame, unsure how to stand in the doorway of a life he no longer controlled. Sophia was polite, clear, distant. He did not ask to come in. She did not invite him. One Saturday, 3 months after the gala, he arrived early and found Sophia in the small front garden, helping Lily plant lavender. She likes this place, he said quietly. Sophia stood, brushing soil from her hands. So do I. He looked at the house. It feels like you. She didn't answer. I started therapy, he said. Sophia looked at him then. I'm not saying that to change anything, he added quickly. I just thought you should know. I've been trying to understand why I needed admiration so badly that I confused it with love. That's good, Ethan. He nodded, eyes lowered. Clara is under investigation. I heard. I was stupid. Yes. The directness made him smile sadly. You always did tell the truth better than anyone. No, Sophia said. I often softened it for you. He absorbed that. Lily ran over with muddy hands. Daddy, look, we planted purple. Ethan knelt, focusing completely on her. It's beautiful, Bug. For once, his phone stayed in his pocket. Sophia noticed. She said nothing. Healing did not mean returning. Growth did not erase betrayal. But for Lily's sake, and perhaps for Ethan's soul, she hoped the noticing had finally begun. 6 months later, Sophia attended another gala. Not with Julian as armor, not to confront anyone, not to prove she existed. She attended as a guest speaker for a women's leadership foundation that supported mothers returning to professional life after years spent being underestimated. She wore ivory this time, simple and luminous. Before stepping on stage, she stood alone in the hallway, remembering the sapphire gown, the terrace, the receipt, the woman she had been in the closet holding proof with steady hands. Then she walked out to applause. She spoke not about betrayal, not directly, but about worth. For a long time, she said, looking across the room, I believed being patient meant being quiet. I believed loyalty meant absorbing pain privately so the people around me could remain comfortable. But I learned something important. Love should never require you to disappear. A home should not be a place where one person becomes smaller so another can feel powerful. And dignity is not something someone gives you after they finally understand your value. Dignity is what you choose the moment you stop negotiating with disrespect. The room was silent, not empty silence, listening silence. Sophia continued, voice steady. Some people will only recognize what they had after they lose access to it. That is not your tragedy. That is their lesson. Your responsibility is to return to yourself. In the back of the room, Julian stood with tears in his eyes. Valentina beside him whispered, She's magnificent. And she was. Not because she had won against Clara, not because Ethan had fallen, not because society finally looked at her and saw what had been there all along. She was magnificent because she had stopped asking to be seen by people determined to look past her. After the speech, her phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. Lily watched online with me. She said, Mommy looks like a queen. She's right. Sophia read it twice. Then she typed back, Tell her I love her." She did not add anything else. Outside the hotel, San Francisco fog rolled gently through the streets. Sophia stood under the awning for a moment, breathing in the cool air. A car waited at the curb, but she did not immediately move toward it. She looked up at the soft glow of the city, at windows filled with lives she would never know, at rain beginning again in faint silver threads. Once, rain had been the sound of something ending. Now it felt like beginning. She stepped forward without fear, not as a wife trying to hold a broken marriage together, not as a woman waiting for a man to remember her worth, not as a mother pretending pain was peace. She walked as Sophia Hale, whole in ways no betrayal could undo, carrying her scars without shame and her future without apology. And later that night, when she returned home, Lily was waiting in pajamas near the stairs, sleepy but determined. "Mommy," she said, rubbing her eyes, "did you win?" Sophia set down her purse and knelt in front of her daughter. She thought about the receipt, the gala, the terrace, Ethan's regret, Clara's anger, the house they left behind, the woman she found again. Then she smiled, not the polite smile she had worn for years, but a real one. "Yes, sweetheart," she said softly, "but not because someone lost." Lily tilted her head. "Then why?" Sophia pulled her into her arms and held her close. "Because I came back to myself." Lily hugged her tightly, too young to understand all of it, but old enough to feel the truth in her mother's voice. And in that small warm house, with rain tapping gently against the windows and lavender beginning to grow in the garden outside, Sophia finally understood that the life ahead of her did not need to be perfect to be beautiful. It only needed to be honest. And at last it was.